Hey everyone, me and Buster Green here, and now that Gundam is over for the next 3 months, I wonder which show I should review next. Anyway, I guess there's a controversial new reboot of beloved sci-fi western anime Trigun that just came out, so let me review that. I'll at least check out the first episode and tell you what I think. By the way, if you're new to the channel, my name is Buster Green, and I am trying extremely hard to get my channel monetized, and I have just been thankfully blessed by the goddess of victory, Soletta Mercury, and now, thanks to her, I only need 885 watch hours to get monetized. Thank you, Soletta. You really did it. Alright, now let's talk about Trigun, because that's what we're talking about today, Trigun. Now, recently they announced a reboot of Trigun called TRIGUN STAMPEDE, and if you haven't been following the news, the show, the reboot, it's a little bit controversial. It's the first major radical anime reboot probably that I can think of. I can't think of an anime where they rebooted the entire show and was we're literally changing everything, but that's what they're doing here. It's possible that since it's been so long since the original Trigun came out, the original came out in 1998, that Trigun fans have just waited so long for this reboot that now that it's finally here, a lot of people just can't handle it. So let's try to figure out Trigun. Now look, I love Trigun, but I'm not completely going to go soft gloves on the original. Sure, Vash was awesome, sure, Wolf was awesome, sure, the show was a vague Christian allegory for why murder is wrong, and the music, God, the music in the original show was great. I still listen to the ending at least once a year. Rem had an epic song that was just so calming. Plus, there was an episode where there was a guy with a killer saxophone. That was probably the most awesome episode. Now, I guess this reboot came about because a lot of people, as cool as the original was, I guess a lot of normies didn't understand it. A lot of people had this issue with the original Trigun that it didn't quite explain itself clearly. The details were there, but you really had to pay super attention to fully understand them. Even me, I watched the whole show, I loved it, but I don't know exactly what Vash and Knives ultimately were. Were they androids? Were they aliens, immortals, clones, robots, ghosts? I know they were extremely old, I know they couldn't die, and I know they were also related to the plant things that were keeping the planet alive, but I ultimately don't fully comprehend what they are, what they're made of. I also know that everyone on this planet was there as a result of a space colony accident, but again, that was something that they really only mentioned once in the original, and they mentioned it in such sparse detail that it was a little bit hard to comprehend. So yeah, some people complained that the original Trigun was devoid of context. Possibly there were just too many details omitted from the anime that were only in the manga and were hard to figure out if you only watched the anime. But now we come to the new one, and the new one is trying very, very hard to not do that, or rather to do something instead of that. So the new anime has people majorly polarized. There's a lot of people just up in arms about this new one. Now, one of the major things that has polarized people about the new show is while the original Trigun was probably one of the last full hand-drawn 2D anime of the 1990s, probably one of the finest 2D beautiful anime ever made. I would say it's up in the top 10 in terms of quality hand-drawn anime. The new remake is entirely CG. Now that's a huge turnoff for me, but not a deal breaker. But I also know for a lot of other people, they're just not going to watch the show because they hate CGI that much. So anyway, let's just cut up the explanation and get down to actually watching the episode. So the episode starts in deep space, and it has a huge, spectacular Star Wars vibe. So we get some glimpses of Vash and Nai's childhood, and the story just starts there, which is technically, chronologically, the earliest part of the timeline, so I can see why they picked that. But yeah, rather than actually explain anything or go over their relationship again, we just get Rem, and Ren instant dies and sends Vash and Nai down to the planet to escape. And we have this super cinematic opening space shot where they're dodging debris in their space escape capsule, and it's super, super nice. And then we start Trigun episode 1 again. And this episode 1 is literally Trigun Episode 1 just like it was in the first series. It's just everything's fucking different. So, just like in the original 1990 series, we start off with Meryl Silverberg. And here she is. She looks different. Oh, wait, no. Her name is Meryl Streep. Who the fuck was Meryl Silverberg? Anyway, she looks similar to what she used to look like. She's still rocking that sexy white ensemble, that gorgeous Monica Lewinsky's white dress with the blue beret. That always won me over, but I don't know. The new Meryl, something's off about her face. She looks a little bit chubbier or something. I don't know. The original Meryl had this like dykish cute quality to her, but this new one seems a little bit more frumpy. So instantly we come upon our first new controversy of the new show. And that is her big, beautiful female friend Millie is now a big, burly man named Robert De Niro? Really? Gah? Now, female Ghostbusters is one thing, but male Millies? I don't know about this. Now, I'm praying to God the actual female Millie will turn up later, but if this guy is outright replacing her, no thank you, sir. Like, funny name aside, like, yeah, I see what you did there, you're not actually Robert De Niro. Like, Millie was the comedic core of the original show, and her mellow, spacey vibes kept things light and happy. Without Millie, Meryl is just a bitch in the heat. Oh, and also they've changed Meryl. She's literally a different character now. She's like a reporter now. Dude, that's not cool. Like, her job was to be an insurance agent. Now you just made her like fucking April O'Neil from the Ninja Turtles. Like, I honestly liked her being an insurance agent because she was like literally probably the only interesting insurance agent in the entirety of fictional media. And you're gonna take that from her? Ah, fuck you, reboot. At least the music is still suitably Western, and I got no complaints against the background music. So anyway, they're driving this electric car through the desert, and they run out of battery in the middle of the desert heat. So like the first episode of the original show, they're still looking for Vash the Stampede, but I don't know, this episode, it just feels weird and wrong to me. Like, it's the first episode of Trigun. I acknowledge the part of my brain that tells me this is the first episode of Trigun, but at the same time, it's just so ridiculously wrong. Anyway, so Meryl finds Vash tied up. I remember this part. In the new show, Vash's robot arm looks a lot more crappy. It looks less like a robot arm and more like a skeleton arm that is also somehow robotic. Cops come over and find Vash's wanted poster. The wanted poster, ironically, looks better animated than anything else in the entire episode. Once again, the animation here is pretty funky. Oh, and now we get our first good look at Vash, and I gotta just lay it down. Vash's redesigned coat is shit. I have no idea, no reason why they redesigned it. I guess just because they're using CGI and CGI has to be simplified. But yo, the original Vash, his original trench coat, that shit was fucking iconic. It was kind of goth, but it wasn't goth because it was red. And let's face it, that coat was so fucking iconic that people dreamed about owning that coat. Whereas his new coat looks like fucking $20 pajamas you got off Amazon or some other like Chinese internet site somewhere. My only hope is that once again he's going to upgrade back to the classic design, but no sir, I'm not counting on it. I think it's like 20% difference so they can sell like a new action figure of Vash. Look guys, I gotta be real with you guys. Vash just does not look as cool in this one. He also doesn't have like his hair gelled up, which was like part of his look. Maybe he has to like earn hair gel through the course of the show, or they're like holding off on giving him the hair gel until the show gets more exciting. But nah, I don't like the way he looks either. At least his design looks a lot more balanced in the wanted poster. He looks cooler in the wanted poster than he does in the show again. Once again, wanted poster. That's where all the animation budget went. Anyway, so then they come upon a saloon, and the saloon has a large, friendly woman named Rosa, but she isn't Millie. At least everyone here is stoked to see Vash, because Vash has already, like, established himself as a good guy off screen, I guess, already. Now, when they get to the saloon, the CGI animation kind of improves, and I will say that as the episode goes along, the CGI starts to look better and better. Maybe I'm getting more used to it, but either way, any second of the show CG animated looks a lot worse than the original 1998 show being drawn in 2D. Now, if I'm going to be a super nice guy about it, I will say that potentially this is some of the best CGI anime I've ever seen, but I still don't like it. But hey, maybe they're just trying to like equivalate themselves to like what the original was doing for 2D. Alright, so then we come to another big divergence. So in the original show, they got that Vash was a plant child and that he had like this untapped knowledge. In this new show, he's actually using it and he's taking advantage of his knowledge to like fix plants and help people. I do think they alluded to this in the show, but it's something you never actually saw, or that at the very least Vash never acted on or did anything, at least as far as I remember. So they want Vash to fix the plant, but before he can, cops show up to try and arrest him, and they offer to trade Vash for fixing the plant. Anyway, pretty quickly a fight breaks out, and we get some pretty cool sound effects, but then all of a sudden it turns into another catastrophe where a bunch of missiles are raining down and they're going to kill everyone. So Vash is going to blow up all the missiles, but he can't because he used up all his bullets. So then he manages to crowdfund a single bullet from a random stranger, and then manages to perfectly throw a rock in the air, use a bullet to split the rock, and then the pieces of the rock literally somehow blow up all the cluster missiles, because when they blow up the other missiles. Now at the end of the episode, Robert De Niro, says Vash seems to not be afraid of anything, and then Vash just straight up tells Robert De Niro, that he's only afraid of his brother. And then we get another pre-episode flashback where like Knives takes credit for killing all the plant ships back in the day, except for like the few that escaped. And then we also flip over to like a citadel where Knives is playing the piano, and he seems to have a much grosser, gaudier looking version of Vash's pajama coat, except it's like silver and reflective-y. And he's playing like a piano song for a creepy gargoyle woman. Okay, well, that was a different execution of the first episode of Trigun. And, the end theme sucks too. Come on. I know it doesn't hold a candle to Kazewa Mirai Fuku, but I thought it would at least be something I could adapt to. I know someone's at least going to upload the ending with the original song, so hey, if you're doing that, let me know. I'll watch it. At least Vash looks cool in the ending, so the ending's not a complete bust, but honestly, this first episode left me feeling very dissatisfied. Oh, and fuck you. At the end of the show, there's a concept art card, like the one that Gundam's been doing like this year, and it totally shows Vash in his original manga 1990s design. So still holding out hope that he reverts to it, but I'm thinking that this is probably just pre-production art from before they decide to change the character designs. What am I gonna do with the show? Like, it's trying to be a reboot, and it's trying to make more sense to the original, but by trying to make more sense, it's being less cool. And by trying to focus more on the story, I guess the overall story, I don't think I like it. Like, this episode, they tried too hard to give you the context that the original Trigun, like, was really good about showing and not telling you. But I don't know, like, the more it makes me reflect on, like, how good the original Trigun was. You know what I loved about the way the original Trigun started? The original Trigun started with these wacky little standalone episodes that just introduced you to Vash, Millie, and Meryl, and like made you like them as characters. And then when later you got into the Knives arc, that was completely different, and then they were just focused on boiling out the end of the story. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of love those early episodes of Trigun. Like, remember how fun it was when Vash fought the big neon guy and how stupid that guy looked? Like, to sum it down, like, for me, the original Trigun kind of worked best when it was a happy-go-lucky show about a guy trying to atone for his sins, and, you know, over the course of that show, it slowly turned into something deep and dark and depressing and personal. Especially when Knives was introduced, and especially when his gang kept committing atrocities. But overall, the part of Trigun I liked best were the early episodes where it was just these simple, fun adventures with Vash, Meryl, and Millie. And in this remake, we're not getting that. We're skipping straight to the bloody edgelord shit right off the bat. And Millie's not even here. They've replaced her with fucking Academy Award-winning actor Robert De Niro. So, I'm like intrigued to see this out, but I don't know, like right off the bat, I just don't like this show. I don't like Vash's new design. I don't like the CG anime. I don't like that they changed Meryl's job. And I don't like that Millie's existence may or may not have been compromised to replace her with Robert De Niro. Yeah, this first episode doesn't leave me with a lot of investment in the show. Like, this first episode... Ugh... I borderline want to categorize it as terrible, but I will say at the bare minimum, they did at least win me over by showing that they could competently pull off the CGI animation. But I don't know, it's gonna take a lot for this show to like get to a point where like I think I'm like amazed by it. The show is giving me such a weird gut feeling. Like, I don't know, like it reminds me of like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but like in a bad way. Like I would almost say this anime is the exact opposite of that one. Like, to explain it, Full Metal Alchemist was probably one of my favorite animes of like the 2000s. And then immediately after it was over, because it was so successful, they adapted it a second time, and they adapted it more closely to the manga. But Brotherhood was a mixed bag. Like, I liked parts of it, I didn't like parts of it, and it didn't wow me as much as the first one did. So now here we have Trigun, and Trigun was a perfect anime, true to the manga, and now 20 years later we're getting this weird reboot that's different from the manga but trying harder to tell the core of the manga's story. I don't know. Anyway, at least Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood had a kick-ass soundtrack. The soundtrack for this new show hasn't wowed me yet, but I guess here's my overall takeaway from this new show. The original Trigun was a perfect anime. And I'm not sure who felt the flow was weird. Was it the creators? I think by and large everyone was happy with it. But I guess now we have this remake and they're trying to make the flow different. And the flow being different just feels weird to me. Like, the fun of the original Trigun was figuring it out. But being told right from episode 1 that Vash is probably a robot, that the planet is the result of a failed space colonizing accident, and that also Vash has a super evil brother who's the devil and he's coming. I don't know, that's a lot. Like, I feel it honestly does the story a disservice when the original anime just took its time to introduce Vash and, you know, make him a likable protagonist. Like, understand why he's like so messed up. I really didn't want this show. I wanted more Trigun, but I wanted more of the original Trigun. I didn't want the same Trigun retold again to stupid people. At the end of Trigun, you know, Vash has found his peace, but there were also like 130 years where he toiled in chaos on the planet. Look, my point is, you could have done a new Vash story on the timeline, but you didn't do that. Now you're doing a remix, and a remix might have some new stuff in it, but it's not a new story. It's just the same story told differently, and since the original story was so perfect, I think this is kind of set up to fail. My only guess is they did a full reboot remix is because Wolfwood is dead and half the people who watch Trigun just watch it for Wolfwood. Ugh, this first episode was honestly so bad that I'm considering dropping the show. But Shigeru Chiba is going to be in the next episode, and I haven't seen a good Shigeru Chiba show in a number of years, so I'll watch a few more eps. At least I'm holding out hope that eventually, like, Millie will come back, or like the guy with the evil saxophone, or who knows what else. Trigun. I guess we're doing Trigun again. But, some things you don't need to do again. Sometimes lightning can't strike twice, so, This first episode, leaving me really, really feeling empty. Alright guys, what do you think? Leave a comment. Did you enjoy the episode? Did you feel the same way as me that it was kind of unnecessary and not as good as the first attempt? Let me know. Thanks. Please subscribe. Please watch my stuff for an hour. Thank you. Good night.